Hi everybody. Every now and then we've got some events to deal with that question our system. The world wars are some of them, of course. Economic crisis, banking crisis we had in 2008. Right now we're in the middle of the European Union trying to come together with some countries having a lot of debts, some countries having less debts, and the fact that it's not really working as a system and that it needs some change, and it will change, of course. The question is, why do we need that harm to go through that change as a human society? If we were truly animals in the way we think, and there is starvation, the animals are just going to fight with one another, and it's just going to be a question of strength. The strongest will win. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters, really. Strength will take over. But in a world war, or any kind of war, we've got to ask ourselves the question, is that war necessary for the ones triggering it? And is that war necessary in terms of the response that we take and the lives that we put at stake in some of the people in our families? Some families send their kids to war, or we could say their kids are sent to war. Michael Moore, cineast, has often said that the politicians, the group of politicians that vote for wars, could send their children, should send their children with the rest of the nation's children, and if they did this, they would have the skin in the game. They would have the skin in the game to realize the impact that it has on families, because it would impact their families. This is the central idea of today's discussion, which is skin in the game. Bertrand Russell, the late philosopher, made a video several decades ago. You can find it online. Type Bertrand Russell message to humanity. And he was asked two questions. And one question he was asked actually was, what is your message to humanity? And he said, I'll say two things. And one of the two things was that humans have to tolerate each other. We have to tolerate each other. The wars are an example. There are much smaller versions of this in daily life, where we live with one another and we accept that people have different opinions. And some of the times people get upset, and that creates other problems. There's a balance. There's a balance to how we need to be upset, and there's a balance to how we need to take it on ourselves a little bit. The point is, really, at the end of the day, that if you have some level of consequences to you personally to make things work or to make things fail, you will have the right incentive to make things work. And of course the system, the banking system was, in the example of 2008, a system where the bankers kept bonuses, where the banks went down, and the taxpayers, you and I, paid for the losses. The bankers had upside but no downside, so they had no skin in the game. This is very different in airplanes, aeronautics. The pilot of an airplane is putting his life in his hands every time he does his job. He's putting his life, not his bonus, his life. And as a result, the field of aeronautics is extremely reliable. The failures of planes are very, very, very low. Because they've realized, first of all, that if you don't optimize, if you give margins of errors everywhere, you distribute components, you get multiple engines, you get multiple wires, and if you buffer the system, which is the plane could go faster, it's built to tolerate more shocks than it goes through, but you just put it a little bit slower at a level where it's not going to break. And then the fact that the pilots are ultimately in charge of the plane, and they put their life at risk every time with the customers. This idea is central to Bertrand Russell's point, which is if we are going to tolerate one another, to succeed with one another, we all need to have some incentives, up and down, and reasonable incentives to make it work. Whether it's engaging in a war where politicians should have strong skin in the game, in economics where businesses need to have skin in the game that the governments are not always to bail them out. And then in the rest of daily life, where success, we are rewarded ultimately directly for success, and that makes a world that is much stronger. Take care.